Hey everyone, I'm Stephanie, and I believe that the right book at the right time can change lives, and that all readers should read children's literature, especially adults. So that's what we do here on the KidLit Love podcast. We celebrate all things children's literature: picture books, early readers, middle grade, and young adult novels for readers of all ages. In each episode, we'll talk with children's literature authors and discuss their books, their hopes, their dreams for readers, their writing process, and much, much more. Whether you're an adult reading to their inner child or connecting the young readers in your life with fantastic books, you've come to the right place. So grab a notebook to build your TBR, and let's get to today's episode of KidLit Love. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the KidLit Love podcast. I'm Stephanie Affinito, your KidLit loving host, inviting you back to another bookish conversation with a children's literature author. Today, I'm talking with Pooja Makhijani. Pooja is the author of multiple books, including Mama's Saris, Bread is Love, and her newest book that she's here today to celebrate, Together for Mama. This beautiful picture book is a story about care and how it moves through family and communities, how children witness it, and how they offer it in return. This is a story of hope and healing. It's for everyone, and I can't wait to talk with her all about it. So we're just going to go straight to the episode. Pooja, welcome to KidLit Love again.
Thank
I am so glad to have you back.
thank you, Stephanie, so much for having me.
Oh, of course. I do want to say right at the top of the episode for listeners who perhaps did not catch your first episode here, that was episode 200, where we talked about your picture book, Bread is Love, which, yes, I did attempt to make some of my own after our session with the help of a bread maker, but I still count it. And so I just want to say that right off the bat, listeners, if you don't already know Bread is Love, I want you to go listen to it. That is also a beautiful book of family and love and ritual and connection. And it will be a good pairing to go with this episode. So now that I got that out of the way, I'll say welcome again. And for those that perhaps didn't get to listen to that episode yet, I'd love for you to introduce us to you and give us a bit about the journey you've taken through children's literature.
Yeah, thank you so much for your very generous introduction. Um, I have always been based on the East Coast. I'm a Jersey girl. I do not know how to pump gas. Well, I know how to pump gas, but you know what I mean. And I've always loved children's books ever since I was a really young person. I remember in eighth grade, I wrote my first picture book, and it was a book about two bears who did everything together. And I drew and I illustrated it. And I remember my eighth grade middle school teacher, God bless eighth grade middle school language arts teachers,
Absolutely.
um, who was like, you should write a children's book, like in real. And she sent me to the library to find what used to be the children's marketplace for illustrators and writers. It was like an actual book.
Right.
And that sort of was like I feel like that was the seed now that I look back at it. Of course, I was really young and life went twisty and turny, but when I became a young professional, I definitely I have always been drawn to picture books specifically, but middle grade as well. And I decided to write picture books. And slowly but surely, but slowly but surely, I've sort of uh, come to this point in my life where now I have three picture books out, which is really, really exciting.
That is exciting. Congratulations for all of that. And I love when someone can trace back to perhaps that one moment where they realized that was a thing they could do and it was possible. Like to trace that back to your eighth grade self and hats off to your eighth grade English language arts teacher. And the journey, may have been not a linear one at first, but the best ones are the ones that are windy and twisty and have brought you to these beautiful books. Now, normally I jump right into the first book, but I do want to give you a chance to talk about your books as a collective, because
Yeah.
one thing that I have felt deep in my heart when I read your books especially your newest one, which we'll get to, is that to me, they truly symbolize what picture books could do in this world, which is make someone feel seen, make them feel heard, make them understand, make them empathetic, make literally a 3 to 4 minute reading experience change the way they feel about themselves and their life and their family and all of the things in a book. And I know that's kind of throwing a big question at you, but I'd love for you to, before we get specific, to just talk about your books as a whole, because
Yeah.
I just feel them all so deeply now that I have read all of them at this point.
Okay. I think, thank you so much for asking that question. That means a lot to me. I think that I'm subject wise, I think that we artists and writers have like obsessions that we keep coming back to. You see this in other, think of your favorite writers, right? There are like common themes, there are common motifs. Um, this, if you look from their juvenilia to their like, magnum opus, you'll see that. And I think that for me, it has been a couple of things. One is sort of domestic life and what does that look like?
Mhm.
Two, what does care look like and what does collective care look like and what are our responsibilities to each other? And three, I think is the really honoring the difficult emotions that young children and allowing the space for them to explore those emotions in a way that's obviously age appropriate, but also like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like these are real. We don't dismiss them. Children are complex. Children are have all of these things going on. And just to honor that, the complexity of children. Um, and so whether it's in Bread and Love is Love, where the spoiler alert, the child deals with disappointment, or in this one, where it is, a more serious issue, it is depression, and we will talk about that in a moment, and so on and so forth. I'm interested in sort of the emotional internal lives of very young children.
Yeah. Yeah. And your books just offer that invitation in that
Thank you.
these feelings are okay. We all have them. We are not alone in them. And talking about them, could actually be the thing that helps and that makes us feel better. And if that doesn't happen in our own life, this book acts as like this beacon
Yeah.
that it is something that we can, which
And
is,
to add,
oh, go
oh,
ahead.
sorry. To add to that, Stephanie, obviously it's for the child to be seen and to be valued and appreciated and all of that, despite what their internal self is feeling like. But I think it's also a way to model caregiver behavior too, right? This is another way to be like, this is the ideal, this is how I see myself as an ideal caregiver. I want to put that down as well.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, picture books are not just for little people. They are for their readers and their adults. And as you just said, their caregivers as well. And no matter what kind of reader is approaching this book, there's something here for all of us to feel and to learn for sure, which would be the good segue to have you talk a little bit about Together for Mama, a story of hope and healing. And I'd love if you talk about the inspiration behind this particular story as well.
Yeah. So the inspiration is deeply personal. After my daughter was born, she's a teenager now. I sort of had sort of a long period of depression, sort of anxiety, a number of sort of perinatal mental health issues. I was also at risk for a variety of reasons. Um, and so that's one piece of it. And of course, through the help of many, many, many people, including professionals and family and all of this, obviously I'm here to write this story today. But also I am a journalist. I have written about maternal mental health and the postpartum period and sort of the quote unquote fourth trimester for the New York Times and Bon Appetit and so on and so forth. And I think those two things, obviously my personal experience and having also this more uh, objective, quote unquote, understanding of some of the issues, gave me a lot to think about for a long time. I actually didn't think that a book like this was possible. It felt very risky to write it. But
Mhm.
one summer, this was about 3 summers ago, I think it was 2023, 22, 23. Picture books take a long time to produce, as you know.
Yeah.
I said, I'm going to give it a try. In 45 minutes, I wrote a draft because I knew what the beginning, the middle, and the end were because it was based on, personal experience. However, obviously, there were things that I had to fictionalize. There were things that I had to think about in the context of a picture book. Who is the character telling the story? Who is the narrator?
Mhm.
Um, there were things that I experienced that I knew I did not want in a picture book, right? They just were inappropriate. They were too scary. They were not something that I could kind of. So it was also about
Oh,
thinking about how do you fictionalize a story that is very difficult to tell. But I still knew what the beginning and the middle and the end were. So I wrote this draft. And then just like I became obsessed with it. I was like, I can do this, right?
mhm.
And then I started looking at other books that had addressed mental health in families, other picture books, not a few picture books, and I'll talk about them, but two middle grade novels, I think, gave me a lot of things to think about. And of course, that's a slightly older audience. So one was The Whole Story of Half a Girl by Veera Hiranandani, who it's through her father is depressed in the novel, and we sort of figure that out by the end. There's sort of a lot of stuff going on at home, and I thought that was incredibly beautifully done. And the other one was The Science of Unbreakable Things. Is that what it's called? By Tay Keller. Um, and that is about a little girl whose mother has mental health issues. And it's just a beautiful novel that incorporates family and science and like just, oh, anyway. So I looked at those two novels. Another picture book that really, really I thought about a lot. There was a book that came out several years ago called Always Sisters by a writer named Syra Mir, M-I-R, and it was about pregnancy loss. And so there was like this kind of related. So I wanted to see how, so these three texts especially, but there were others as well, served as like mentor texts to see what was possible. Um, yeah, and I also in the writing of it, I also went to friends, a dear friend of mine, childhood friend of mine is an OBGYN, and deals with a lot of this sort of in the like in a clinical capacity. So I like touched base with her to talk to her. I talked to another friend who's a psychotherapist who is an expert in perinatal mental health issues, especially in the Asian American community. So I talked to her for a little bit. Um, I talked to a friend. So the story of the book, just maybe we backtrack a little bit just to give the listeners, it is about this little girl. Her name is Asha. She is so excited to become a big sister. Like she's just ready and armed and like to do all the things. And she's so happy. But her mom comes home and she quickly realizes mom is not as happy as she is. She doesn't understand why. That she's always sitting in her room, she's always on her phone, her eyes are always red, and so on and so forth. Um, so in my case, of course, it was my child and my only child, but this is told through the story of an older sibling. So I also talked to friends who had experienced this specific type of postpartum period, which is not uncommon.
Right.
Um, and so, yeah, so all of that informed like this slow shaping after this 45 minute, like just write down, write down, write down, got the draft down, but then I had to think about a lot of things. And then I sent it to my agent, and she was like really excited about it. We'd never seen anything like this. And this is true as far as I know, it's the first traditionally published book about postpartum depression.
I would
There are
agree.
other books, like I said, about pregnancy loss and depression of other kinds. Um, and we sent it out within 48 hours. We got a call from an editor who was like, who else is this being sent to? And they were very interested. And then I had an offer in 5 weeks. I want to reiterate, this is not normal. It was just, I
Right.
feel like right person, right time, all of those things
Right.
happen.
Everything. Yeah.
Yes. So that was the
Mhm.
inspiration, but plus also the creative process of coming to this point.
Yeah. I love hearing that backstory. That is always why it's one of my first questions that I ask, that inspiration. And I think what I especially love as someone who reads so much is your dive into the mentor texts. to use those other books as inspiration and models and as a way to kind of shape and form and move your draft from one to the other. I feel like it's just that beautiful cycle of read books and then read more books, and that gives us ideas for more books and authors write them, and it's just this beautiful process where all these books kind of stand on the shoulders of others and just make such for a rich, rich community of books and writers, of course. Yeah. So, looking at the book itself, you already talked about kind of the beautiful progression that happens and this point of view that makes it so accessible to young readers, especially to all readers. Um, but I want to talk right away about the illustrations because I don't know how editors and publishers do it, but they just magically pick what appears to be the best possible match. And so you have this, I don't want to say beginning, middle, and end, but like it's a beginning, a middle, and end where these phases are moved through, and it is a hard topic, but there is hope on every page. It is not a book, that is just, as you said, going to be about a hard thing only. But the illustrations just put you in the home. They put you in the baby bouncer. They put you on the rug. They put you on the couch, and the emotion that are in these illustrations, it's just exquisite. I would love for you to talk about this from your point of view of how these pictures they just brought this to life in such a beautiful way.
Yeah, I mean, I've said this before. I've been so fortunate to work with such talented illustrators who I feel like they bring themselves to the page as well. So
Mhm.
Nadia Alam is a Bangladeshi Canadian illustrator. She is an illustrator and as of like 2 weeks ago, also a bookstore owner and a bookseller in Toronto, Canada.
Wow.
Um, she just opened her bookstore. It looks amazing. I'm like, I'm coming to Toronto.
That's
Um,
exciting. Yes. Add
and
it to the bookish
she
bucket list.
I think she does such interesting character work that each of these characters, because there are six main characters through this book that are all related in some way. They are an extended family. And they're also distinct. They all are so expressive, obviously, especially the child narrator, but also the mom.
Yeah.
Um, they, she she I don't know, they're so distinct, right? They just feel each one feels so special that she spent so much time thinking about who this person is. I think she does wonderful, wonderful things with color. As you can see, as you said, there's sort of a beginning and a middle and an end, and the sort of mood shifts throughout for obvious reasons. And her color palette shifts. So when things are quote unquote happier, you see a lot of more spring greens, for example. But when we see Mama, who is struggling, sort of midpoint, a third of the way through the book, she uses a lot of grays and purples. And those aren't necessarily sad colors. I don't want to like denote them as such, but it just shifts the mood of the whole book. And then it opens up again, right? So she creates this like on something that can't be shown in the words, but it makes you feel different. Like you're almost like opening, closing your like physical. So she's like embodying the text in a way.
That is exactly it. That is exactly what the reader feels. You feel that emotion as it moves up and down as you become
Hmm.
part of it. And the other thing I loved is that, it is a story of the big sister
Yeah.
and what's going on with mom, but you have grandparents and you have other characters that this book, as you mentioned early in the episode, that I want to come back to, it isn't just about the experience from a big sister's point of view. It is this book that shows the collective support that could happen, hopefully does happen, but could happen, and how it isn't portrayed in a negative light of, oh, like you're dealing with this, or oh, how could this happen? This is our reality, and we all love each other and we all pitch in because this is what we do. I loved that feeling because that feeling can be hard to come
Hmm.
sometimes when you're going through something hard, and that is just so present on the page. It's beautiful.
I think also, especially, I mean, with all kinds of mental health issues, but I'll speak to postpartum perinatal mental health issues specifically. The expectation is that the family and especially the mother, the birthing mother, will only feel joy, right? Like, oh, this idea that like the days are long, but the years are short. You will miss
Mhm.
this and all of this stuff, and that the only expression of emotion you're allowed is joy and gratitude. The postpartum period, as we all know, is like just really complicated. And I think the pressure to always feel joyful is what stigmatizes this
Yes.
even more. So, yes, a huge part of writing this book, and of course, all my journalism that has preceded it, is to be like exactly what you said. This is what it is. This is a biological reality of human beings, and either we create the support systems to help all mothers and children, or what? Or we turn a blind eye as we had been doing for a very long time.
Yes. Yeah. To talk about it, to put it out there,
To
to
put it out there so that people know, that families know they're not the only ones,
that's
you
right.
know?
Yeah.
Everyone knows that when a baby comes home, yes, it can be joyful, but it's very stressful. It's
Yes.
exhausting. It's just 100 million emotions. And we
Yes.
should be allowed to express all of them. Like, oh, it's okay to say I miss my life prior to having a child. It's okay. That doesn't mean you love your child less. It just means, oh, I'm wistful for those moments.
Yeah. And having that permission slip to do so during that time could change your whole experience of
Exactly.
it. Yeah,
Exactly.
so I have twins. They're 19 years old now, but when they were first born, I want to say they were almost a month old, and my lovely neighbor came over with a gift for me. So my son had just turned 2. The twins were almost 4 weeks old, and she came in and was, so kind and so sweet. Also had adult twins of her own, so she knew kind of what I was going through, and I will never forget this moment. She sat down with me and she said, listen, like, this is hard right now, right? It
Yeah.
is a hard time. And people are going to tell you, just get through it. It'll get easier. It'll get better. And she looked right at me and she said, I'm here to tell you it doesn't. And
Mm.
I looked at her and I went, wait a minute. I'm so tired. I'm so hormonal. They're 4 months old. And you're telling me that this doesn't get better? And she goes, listen, I'm telling you it's going to get different. Because in 2 weeks, when you're still tired, in 2 months, when you're still overwhelmed, in 8 months, when you still don't know how to figure this out, I want you to remember that that is absolutely normal and that is not you. And it will get different, but it doesn't mean that you have to figure it out. And then I just bawled and realized that's what I needed, right? Because you have twins and everybody thinks it's so cute and they're so adorable and it is, but it is hard. And I don't know what my state have been um if I didn't have someone tell me from the beginning it will be hard, but it will be different. And I'm so grateful that she did that right from the very start because I feel like that had such a positive impact on my experience moving forward. And that's what this book can give every single person, whether it's in person or not. That's the gift of a book, to give that to you through those pages. So I want to thank you on behalf of everyone who will read it. Just like I got that gift when I needed it, this is going to be that permission slip, that exhale, that reminder that no one is alone, even during a time like this. So that's my thank you on behalf of all
Thank
moms
you.
everywhere, all
Thank,
parents everywhere, all families everywhere, Pooja, for this book.
thank you.
Now, when you think about this book going out into the world, if people are listening on the day this episode is released, then tomorrow is your book birthday. What is your hope for the book or for readers who get the book into their hands?
I think it's a couple of things. I think it's two things. One is to understand to just reiterate what I said before, is that the postpartum period is a time of a lot of upheaval, and it's okay to have lots of different types of feelings about it. I think it's really important for us to acknowledge that. I think that this idea that you have to be some sort of ideal mother. I'm speaking specifically to women here, is deeply rooted in misogyny and patriarchy. And we just need to deconstruct that a little bit. And so that we have better outcomes in all ways for mothers and families and children, right? So I think there's that kind of piece of it. And then the other piece is about just about care, is that we collectively should be caring for all of the women and children in our lives, right? At the macro level and at the micro level. This is a micro story about this family that cares for each other. But how can we like grow that? What does community look like? What does it mean when there's a new baby born in the neighborhood? You know, what are our obligations and responsibilities to each other? So I would love for people to think about that too, you know, to and again, it's just better outcomes for all of us as society, right? Like if we have happier kids and happier moms, we're all good. It's you
Yes.
just, you know,
Yeah.
it can really shift. And so I want people to think about that as well.
Yeah.
And for, of course, young people, you know, one of the things that was really important to me is that Asha is confused and overwhelmed, obviously, but all the adults rally around her as well. And then she's able to take on an age appropriate role where she's not carrying her mother's weight. That's not the responsibility of a child at all, but the ways in which she can also be part of her mother's healing. And I think that's really important to empower children. They can care for other people, maybe not through depression. That's, you know, this is this particular story, but what does it mean to care for the adults in your life?
Yeah.
You know, to like wake up in the morning and like, you know, give your mom or your dad or your grandma or your aunt or whoever, all your grown-ups, you know, just to say good morning to them, right? Is also care.
Yeah.
So that's another thing that I think is deeply embedded in the book. And then I guess the last bit, wow, I really have a lot of hopes for this book.
That's
The
good. That's
last
good.
bit is that, yes, it's a story about postpartum depression that's fairly universal. Like I said, it's not uncommon. It happens to everyone, regardless of class and race and
Yeah.
religion and all of those other sort of strata, but is also deeply grounded in an Asian American family, an Indian American family in particular. I think that in our culture, there's a lot of stigma. If you look at the statistics, Asian Americans do not seek out health care. You know, there's a lot of like sort of cultural pressure, model minority nonsense that kind of gets embedded in this. And so I just wanted to show a family in which there is no judgment. There is no, yeah, just no judgment, right? It's just about a family like, oh, this happened. We all got to like
Yes.
do our thing and like so that we can all be better again,
Yeah. Yeah.
you
That.
know? And especially, you know, yeah, it's just so pervasive, the stigma. And I really want to think about what that, how we can change that specific cultural conversation as well.
Mhm. It's just such a beautiful book, Pooja. I'm so excited that I got to be part of your launch to put
Thank
another book
you.
into the world. And I want to make sure to ask you where the best place to find you online is so that listeners can reach out, they can find your backlist, and then stay in touch for anything else that might come in the future as well.
Yeah, thank you so much. Poojamakijani.com. So Poojamak. I'm sure you'll, never mind. I'm sure you'll include the link in the show
I will
notes.
put it in the show notes.
And that has all of my places that I'll be, mostly in Central Jersey and in sort of New York, Pennsylvania, in into the fall. There's a sign up for my newsletter, which is just once a month. I do interviews with other authors, kind of bring my journalism self into it, and update people on anything books related. And those are the two best places to reach me. And I'm so good on email, so I have a contact form. So if you really want to reach me, trust me, just email me and I'll be back to you in like 5 minutes.
Okay. And I will put links to all of those in
Thank
the
you.
show notes. And of course, links to Together for Mama on
Thank
there
you.
as well, so that listeners can pick it up. And even if this particular season of life does not apply to them right now, as you said, this is about collective care. And we all know someone that could probably use this book or use this reminder or simply have it for ourselves for when the time comes as this beautiful physical reminder of the kind of care we can offer others. Thank you so much for coming
Thank
on
you.
today.
Thank
I
you so
really
much.
enjoyed it. Yeah.
Thank you.
And listeners, thank you for listening to another episode, and I will see you in the next one. Thanks for listening to today's episode of the KidLit Love podcast. You'll find links to all of the books, resources, and ideas mentioned in the show notes and at alitlife.com. You'll also find KidLit Love on Substack. That's where you'll find posts for each episode, monthly KidLit roundups, and an invitation to join my summer book club and go deeper into the world of children's literature. And if you loved this podcast and want more, you might like to listen to my other podcast called Get Literate. It's a podcast that explores all things books and reading, notebooks and writing to build a life you love. One more thing. If you love what you listened to today, please take a moment to rate and review the podcast, or take a screenshot of the episode and text it to a friend. This helps the podcast grow and builds our bookish community of KidLit Love. Thanks for listening.